accepting that, okay, Bianca, you have to get adjusted to now using a wheelchair, being comfortable in spaces with people who once seen you as an able body who now have to accept you as a disabled person, be able to have normal conversations without feeling like you're being looked down upon, even though my eyesight, we may not be eye to eye anymore. So it was just a whole whirlwind, but there have definitely been doors that I've been able to roll through that I never would have been able to walk through.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. My guest today is Bianca Faith Johnson, and I just have to give a quick shout out to a good long-term friend of mine, Gene Murphy, for having the foresight to say, I love your podcast, and I think you need to talk to Bianca, because he was so right with that. And if you know Gene, which Bianca does, he's just seriously one of the kindest, sweetest people you'll ever meet in your life. So thank you, Gene, for this introduction. So welcome, Bianca.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh, you're so welcome. We're so happy to have you today. So just a quick little insight into Bianca, and I'm really going to let her tell her story. I'm going to give you her little background. I'm going to read it here. Bianca Faith is a legal professional working in the areas of family law and immigration for DC 37, which is a municipal employees legal services, which services over 150,000 members. She's also an adjunct professor for the city of New York. You received a BA in English, honors business from Queens College. You're a graduate of Touro Law Center, and where you got your Juris Doctorate. And you're currently a student at Rutgers pursuing an MBA. Unbelievable. So this is just the little, high level about Bianca. But let me tell you why I asked Bianca to be on my show today. In 2017, on July 4th, Bianca, who was a super daredevil, she loves adrenaline, she loves speed, she loves to live life to the fullest, decided to go out that morning for a motorcycle ride. And Bianca, I'm not even going to finish the story. I want you to share with people what happened on that day for you.
Okay, thank you so much for that introduction. So yes, as stated, July 4th, 2017. So I was a part of a Christian motorcycle club called the Mighty Men of Valor / Women of Destiny. And I was actually the only female rider that actually rode with the crew. So I was super excited. I had been riding for quite some years before July 4th, 2017. So annually, we usually just take a ride up to Jones Beach to watch the sunrise, get some prayer in, and just fellowship with one another. So we did so. It was around maybe 6 a.m. and we were headed home because of July 4th, of course, and we all wanted a barbecue. So as we were headed home, we were coming around a bend. And as we came off of the bend, the curve of a parkway in Long Island, the barrier of a drawbridge came down in front of us. It was 3 of us riding. I was the second person to hit. And as a result, I hit the arm, crashed through it, landed onto the bridge. As a result, I sustained face lacerations, body lacerations, 2 lung punctures, sprained wrists, and the most significant of my injuries was a T4, T6 spinal fracture. And that caused me to be paralyzed from the chest down. So I am a paraplegic. I am a full-time wheelchair user, and I've just been navigating ever since.
As you're talking, and I just had to look at my phone really quick because I realized my dog is down here and she barks at the wind. So I just texted my husband to say, come get that dog. But as you were sharing that story, I had chills because we hear this all the time. Life can change in a split second.
Mm-hmm. Literally.
And people don't understand what that can look like or what that can mean. So you have this really traumatic experience. Are you awake? Do you understand the gravity of your circumstance at that moment?
I did not understand, the depth of what just happened. Because, as a rider, of course, you assume certain risks when you mount your bike. However, you hear everything, especially in New York City. Oh, so many cars and so dangerous and, you're not protected. But there were no cars involved. There was no involved. involved. This was literally a freak accident that was no fault of mine. So at that moment, I just couldn't believe what had just happened. I was just trying to get home, and without any warning to me, this barrier came down in front of me and literally knocked the wind out of me. So, I was in and out of consciousness. I woke up in the hospital just knowing that I was in a hospital, but not really exactly what had just transpired.
How long did it take for you to recognize and become aware of the gravity of how bad the injuries were?
I think it had to start with when the doctor started probing me. He came into my bedside in the ICU, and he said, "All right, Bianca, you're in the hospital." Or he asked me, "Do I know where I am?" I said, "Yes." I was coherent. And he started touching me, and he said, "Can you feel this?" He started in my upper body. I said, "Yes." And then when he got to my lower extremities, he said, "Can you feel this?" And I answered him back, "No." He said, "Can you move your legs?" And I answered him back, "No." He told me, "You were in a motorcycle accident, and as a result, you'll probably never walk again." And immediately I was just like, wow, what just happened? But I fired back at him and said, "No, I probably will," not even knowing where I was in this injury, what type of injury it was. But I was determined that something had to shift.
I sometimes when I do these interviews, when I say the hair, I can tell you right now, all the hair is standing up on my arm. And I just think part of it is because it's such a poignant shift in life. It's such a poignant shift in that moment, because you were like, "Yeah, I don't think you know me. I don't roll that way." Literally, like, that's not going to happen. I'm not going to let this beat me. So just quickly, because I have so many things that I want to cover with you in this, what did that look like? Did you have to have surgeries? Did I'm thinking right now of something called the Kubler-Ross change curve. Are you familiar with that?
I'm not.
Okay, so Elizabeth Kubler-Ross is now passed, but she was this really, really well-known woman that was a therapist for the dying and for the people in grief. And she specialized in end of life. And what she realized was end of life does not have to be the only thing we grieve, right? Any kind of change to normalcy, any kind of loss. People had it with COVID, the loss of normalcy, of just freedom of being able to do what they wanted to do when they wanted to do it. You had this tremendous loss, and that loss, even though it's not a death per se, it's the death of your ability to use your body as you always knew it, and we all take for granted. Exactly. So you have this change curve of awareness and acceptance, denial, anger, and then you kind of integrate as it goes up into acceptance. And it's not a straight line, and you're kind of going up and down this roller coaster for quite a period of time.
Yeah.
So tell me about that. How did you cope? What was your process like in coming to acceptance of having lost the use of your legs?
It's definitely something to be said about having to mourn a situation that is literally in your face every single day, right? I'm not an amputee, right? So I still literally see my legs every day. I still have to wash them, lift them, point them in directions and where I'm trying to go when I transfer. So, and even I have sensation. So my spinal cord is not completely severed. It's an incomplete injury. So I can feel, touch in areas. I can feel temperature in certain areas, but I can't just actively move them by myself. So it was a whirlwind, because I'm like, I know they're there. I can feel that they're there, but they're not computing with my brain and listening to me when I say stand or hold my body weight, so that was a whole nother level of mourning and acceptance. And not only that, so I had a splenectomy. And, I'm a very thin woman, and I've always been very body conscious. And, I was very happy with how I looked and things like that. And my stomach was my prized possession. So now I have this huge scar running up and down my stomach that literally saved my life. So I have that appreciation of it, but I still mourn what it used to look like. I know that my spleen ruptured and I could have died, but now I have to see this scar that reminds me of the incident every day, and I had a spinal fusion. So now I have hardware in my back. I think about 8 rods and 12 screws are literally infused in my back. So certain movements I can't do, certain ways I move, I can feel them, literally attached to me. So it was a whole thing of now accepting that, okay, Bianca, you have to get adjusted to now using a wheelchair, being comfortable in spaces with people who once seen you as an able body will now have to accept you as a disabled person, be able to have normal conversations without feeling like you're being looked down upon, even though my eyesight, we may not be eye to eye anymore. So it was just a whole whirlwind, but there have definitely been doors that I've been able to roll through that I never would have been able to walk through. And I'm confident of that.
Oh my God. Can we just sit with that for a second? You said that to me in our pre-podcast interview. I want everybody to hear exactly what she just said. She just said, there are doors I'm able to roll through that I would have never been able to walk through. I don't know how everybody else feels about that statement, but that is so incredibly powerful to me, because that is like the deepest level of acceptance and almost gratitude. Is there gratitude in that?
Definitely. I believe that the injury opened up a lot more than just a new sense of living for me. But it opened up a new perspective, a new community of people that I've been able to embrace and be embraced by, new connections such as yourself, new opportunities. So I do have a level of gratitude for just my life. Right. Not the fact that, I was injured, because anything could have happened to possibly bring me here. But the fact that I still have my life, I'm determined to make something of it or to do something with it to the best of my ability.
Which we're going to get into, because you certainly are harnessing it. But because I want to try to be as sequential with this as possible, I love the way that you started this interview with sharing, not only were you out for a motorcycle ride, but this was a faith-based motorcycle ride where you're going with a group of fellowship to go and pray in the morning. And so clearly you're a very faithful woman. You have a strong connection to God. And I know a lot of times when people go through tremendous loss, their relationship with God gets very fractured. And there's a lot of anger. So what was that process like for you? At any point, did you lose faith? Did you gain faith? Did it become stronger? What was that experience? Because I think a lot of people that are watching this, that could resonate with them as well.
I was grateful in my experience. I never had a doubt God experience, right? Honestly, so I'm also a licensed minister, ordained reverend. So the sermon
prior to?
That was prior to,
okay,
yes. So I've been
a
licensed minister for about 11 years now and ordained since November 2021. But the sermon that directly preceded my accident, I believe I preached it in May of 2017. I preached about the paralyzed man and how I preached about the paralyzed man. And a lot of the times when I'm constructing a sermon and studying for a sermon, God really allows me to go through certain things in relation to it. And I didn't know that at that moment when I preached that sermon, and the sermon title was "Don't Believe Me, Just Watch," that I was literally setting myself up to be prepared for what was to come. So I guess in that moment, I was already had an understanding that, okay, I'm alive. I know God kept me. So now I have to trust that he kept me for a reason. Right. And it was harder for other people to cope with my understanding and that faith than it was for me. Because I knew that something had to break, but other people just looked at my circumstances and thought, well, she has to go through a mourning experience, but it wasn't like that for me.
I honestly don't even have a word. I mean, it amplifies and exemplifies a statement that I came up with a long time ago, which is life is a series of experiences divinely designed for you.
Mm-hmm.
And what I find interesting about what you've said is that other people were mourning the old Bianca. Other
Yeah.
people were mourning for you. And I'm going to use this word strategically because you should be mourning.
Yeah.
So now there's some ego at play. Like, how can you not be? It's because everybody's mourning at that point, right? Like your mother might have been mourning the fear of just that near death experience, or the normalcy of what she had become accustomed to, of a daughter that could walk, right? And all of this. I think it's incredible that you truly saw from the outset that this was divinely designed for you. Is that fair to say?
Yes, very fair to say.
I think everybody just needs to sit with that for a second, because, I talk to a lot of people all day long, and I hear a lot of tragedy, and I hear a lot of trauma, and I hear a lot of experiences that really hold people back. And when I say hold people back, I mean it's been holding someone back for 20, 30, 40, 50 years sometimes by the time they come to me. And they hold on to it as this horrible experience that happened to them. And I use the word "to" very intentionally there. Did you see this as a horrible experience that happened to you?
By no means. And I know sometimes when I speak to people, they're like, oh, you make it sound like it was so easy. By no means was this experience or the accident easy. It was one of the worst things that ever happened to me in my life. However, once I was able to grasp the fact that it happened, right? Accept the fact that I'm now alive, and then move forward with the fact that my life was going to literally change. Then I stopped looking at the experience as something horribly designed, to ruin my life, to something that was beautifully designed to enhance it. Right? Because there is so much fruit that came from the accident, right? Not fruit in terms of, me being this miracle child that one day was rolling and the next day walking, because at the end of the day, people surrounding me may not ever see the day that I walk again. And that's the honest truth, right? But my goal is not necessarily to walk again. It's to prepare myself for whatever's to come, whether that's divine intervention, whether that is a medical miracle, whether that is childbirth, whether that is just something that is going to bring me into usher me into the next level of life. I'm going to make sure that I'm ready. I'm prepared mentally, spiritually, physically. That is my goal.
And don't you feel like that's almost what this accident was? It was the catapult into this next period of life.
Yes, literally. Because I was a person that always did so much. I was never sitting. I was never doing anything. I was just always on the go. And I honestly think for a period of time, God was saying, sit down a little bit, relax yourself.
Do you think, I mean, is there any way is there any chance that was a part of the design to get you to sit?
Of course. Yeah. I mean, I'm rooted in the fact that it's not my plan, but it's his plan, right? So whatever that is, if I just needed to chill out, maybe I was going to run myself into a sickness or something like that. Maybe, who could have known? My blood pressure could have took me out. My mother died from cardiac arrest. I don't know what was lingering or what was to come that God was blocking me from. But at the end of the day, he blocked it, right? And
so listen, I mean, first of all, I feel like I'm at church because this is so inspirational, and I want to weep, actually. Like I'm so touched by your story, but you just segued into something that is, I think, such an important part of what I wanted to cover with you today, which is your mom. Because you had to go through rehab, you had to go through recovery, you had to go through acceptance of this new normal. You get carried, and before we talk about your mom, you get carried into your fiance's apartment 6 months after your accident, or 6 months after you got out of the hospital? Which was it?
6 months after my accident.
Okay. So how long did it take for you to go home after the accident?
So I was in the hospital from July 4th to about July 19th. And then I was transferred to an inpatient rehab facility in New Jersey called Kessler Institute.
Sure.
And then from there, I got home maybe around August 20th. It was right before my birthday. My birthday is August 25th. Mind you, I came home. I couldn't fit in my room. I couldn't fit in the bathroom. I couldn't fit in the kitchen. So they had to put the hospital bed that I now had in the living room, and things had to be rearranged. But I was literally confined to just that room. Not only was I not comfortable yet in my body, but I had a hospital chair that, if anyone knows about those, they're the clunkiest, most hardest thing to maneuver ever. I didn't even have my custom chair. I didn't receive that till December. So I was just all over the place, right? But I knew I had some constants in my life. Even with the things changing, I had some constants. I had my boyfriend, right? My fiancé. He was the apple of my eye. His name was Charles Thomas Gwynn III, but we called him Chaz. He went by Chaz, and he never stopped loving me. He just stuck by me the entire time. He reaffirmed things in me that, I did have some self-doubt about if I could be loved anymore and things like that. Would he see me the same? Would anyone see me the same? And he kept reaffirming me that I was just as beautiful, that I was the same Bianca in his eyes, and he never wavered. So I knew I had that, right? So I was excited. At least, okay, I don't have my legs, but I got my love, right? So I'm all right.
So you're all right. And then 6 months after the accident, what happened?
So I went through it. So as a result of my accident, some things in him began to reappear. He had a heart condition that went untreated from 2010, and that started to reappear. And he had an aortic valve replacement done in November. And I was helping to take care of him after that experience. And then January 11th, I was trying to reach him. He wasn't answering. It wasn't like him not to answer. And I wasn't even driving at the time. I had some family members who were staying with me. I immediately, 6 a.m, something about that 6 a.m, I said, we need to go over there. And my uncle drove me. His coworkers met me. They carried me down the stairs into his apartment. And there he was, lying dead in his bed.
I'm just honoring that for a second, because I just think anybody that's listening now is like, come on, like can this girl not get a break? And can this woman's life not be just one after the other? Tragedy, losing the loss of your legs, losing the loss of your normalcy, and then having your constancy be lost.
Yeah.
So tell me about that.
It was excruciating. I think I mourned that situation more than I mourned my own accident. Because, like I said, there was a certain assumption of risk every time I mounted my bike. I knew something could happen. I didn't think that this would be the extreme. But losing him literally came out of left field. Because he was fine, right? We were in church New Year's Eve. He was over my house literally the day before I found him. He had stayed with me a couple of days, keeping him healthy and things like that. Me and my mother were helping him out. And, I still have our messages. And one of the last messages that he wrote me, he sent me an emoji. And at that time, I didn't update my phone. And he sent me an emoji, and it just came up as a question mark. And I'm like, what is this? So he sent me a screenshot of what he sent me, and it was a man sleeping in clouds. That's what the picture was.
Come on, you're killing me today.
And I said, and I wrote that back to him, and I said, is that an emoji of a man sleeping in clouds? And he responded back, yes, peaceful and serene. And the next day I couldn't reach him, and that's when I found him. So I'm just like, was that a foreshadow of what, like, once again, God was trying to prepare me for something, but I'm just like, why would he send this? I'm like, okay, it's just Chaz. But like, that will forever resonate with me, and I'll forever hold those messages. I think I'm going to frame it, because it's just like, wow.
Do you feel like God was speaking to you in that moment?
For sure. Because there's no other way. There's no other way that something like that, he had never sent me something like that. And even the fact that it wouldn't even come through clearly on my phone, and he literally had to send me a screenshot of what it was. It was just like, I'm trying to get something through to you, and I'm going to get it through by any means necessary. And, I definitely believe that people are in my life, and, everything, there's a season, right? The Bible speaks about it in Ecclesiastics. To everything, there's a season. And for whatever season that he was in my life for and purpose he was served in my life, I'm just completely grateful, and I'll never take it for granted. Every experience, the entire 5 years.
So we talked about the mourning and your personal experience with mourning the loss of, what you thought life would look like able-bodied, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now you're going through this experience where you're mourning your fiancé. How long did that take? What did that process look like for you?
Honestly, the process is still going.
Yeah.
I joined grief therapy groups, spoke to therapists. I did a lot of self-reflection. During that period, my mother was very instrumental in helping me usher through that, because actually she lost my father when I was 3 years old. He was 26, and she was, she was 30, 31 or something like that. So she went through the same thing that, for the most part, that I went through. So I felt that we had another added level of connection during that period. So it bonded us together a little stronger and things like that.
Okay. So you're opening the doorway for me to another segue. So I know that you and I, when we did our pre-podcast interview, we talked a lot about all of this, and it's almost like I'm hearing it for the first time. It's so poignant. But you had shared with me at some point, like, you grew up in Queens, right?
Yes.
Was it Queens? Okay. So you grew up in Queens, New York, but you kind of were raised by a village, right?
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about that before we talk about your mom.
Well, not to mention how the village even got to me. So my mother lived a very hard life for the most part. She was in and out of foster care. She was very sick herself, born with sickle cell anemia. So she wasn't even projected to live past her teenage years, let alone her 20s. And here she was pregnant with me at 27. So in that period of her life, she actually was displaced. She was homeless. And she walked into an organization called Women of Faith, led by Dr. Thelma Bright. And they really housed pregnant teens. But of course, my mother was above that threshold, but they did not turn her away, long story short. So my mother became like kind of the house mother. And as a result, there were faith-based women of this faith-based organization that took to me. And I was the first baby born to women of faith, and hence my middle name, Faith. So it was just, they were mature enough to handle my mother's immaturity. They instilled in me the importance of education and faith and keeping my relationship with God. And they literally just took me under their wings and never let me go. So it was just a tumbleweed effect. Every person every woman, every man that I was connected to just constantly just kept me uplifted and uplifted my mother where she was weak.
And how long did you live at that location?
Until I was 7 years old. I was living in Southside Jamaica, Queens. And then I moved to Flushing.
Mm-hmm. And were you with your mom when you moved to Flushing?
Yes, I was with my mother.
Okay. But it was a tough time. Yeah.
Very. She was sick. She had sickle cell crises all the time. So I actually was with my adopted grandparents a lot of the time, most of the time, maybe up until age 5. I was always with them because they were tired of chasing ambulances, right? Every time my mother would have a crisis, they would have to beat the ambulance to my house so that the social workers wouldn't take me and put me in foster care. So it was just a constant battle.
And so bringing that to where we are today, you've now found yourself in this initial crisis with your legs. Your mother swoops in and begins to take care of you in a way that maybe she didn't have the capability of doing when you were young. Is that fair to say?
Very fair. Because my mother, she was forced to always have to fight for the life that she desired for me. She wanted me to have more and better than she had when she was growing up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think at a lot of times she was in such pursuit of my happiness in terms of what I could have and what I could achieve, that sometimes our emotional relationship was a little, it wasn't as strong as it could have been.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes she was a little bit emotionally detached. She wasn't very touchy feely. She wasn't very lovey dovey. I don't even think me and my mother ever had a proper dinner at a table in our households together. We would eat in our respective rooms, and things like that.
Which doesn't surprise me because, I'm a trauma recovery coach, and being abandoned as a young child, regardless of the circumstance, and being in foster care is incredibly traumatic for a young child. And then to be in multiple foster care placements throughout your life is really so traumatic. And I don't think that children then, let alone now, are getting the proper trauma-informed care. And so to disassociate from your emotions and to not know how to connect, because every time you do connect to someone, there's great loss. And every time you do connect to someone, it's pain. So you learn very quickly as a young child, we don't do that.
Yes.
Right? It's not her fault, but this is what she learned.
Yeah.
And so now she starts to really be your mom by way of the accident.
Oh, yes.
And now she's further deeper connecting to you for the first time when Chaz passes.
Yes.
And then what happens?
So from the moment I came out the hospital or out of rehab, she just assumed the position full force, right? Like I said, I couldn't even fit in the bathroom. So she had to, and it was just me and my mom. It was always just me and my mother. So even in her sickness, she would carry me in her arms, cradle me, and bring me into the bathroom just to be able to brush my teeth or shower or use the toilet. She would constantly come and cook for me and anything I needed. If I was in her presence, I couldn't even do for myself because she was so intentional about just making sure that I was taken care of. And at first it was a little shocking.
Was it uncomfortable at first?
It was very uncomfortable because I'm like, okay, where is this coming from? Because as a result of that relationship that we had when I was younger and growing up, I kind of had a harder exterior to myself as well.
No
because
doubt.
I'm like, okay, all right, Bianca, you gotta know how to navigate and encourage yourself sometime in terms of things. So maybe in a certain way I was a little emotional detached in certain situations of people where I realized why I gravitated to certain people to receive that love in different ways. So when she was showing it so robustly, I was like, oh, okay, I had to really evaluate what was going on, what she was thinking in the moment, and have that conversation and learn how to soften my own self to be able to accept the love that she was ready to give. And that was the best decision that I've ever made in my life. So even if the accident was just for that, I'm grateful.
And I think when you and I initially spoke, this is what had me so choked up, because it was so clearly so full circle. And the reason why I asked you if you were uncomfortable with it is because I talk to my clients about this all the time who have fragmented relationships with their parents. I was like, okay, let's just say best case scenario. You're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. You've had this fragmented, estranged, maybe disconnected, disjointed relationship your entire life. Do you really want a full-on relationship now? Like, what would it look like if your mother had to come in and she just wanted to take care of you all for an entire week? How long could you handle it? And most people are like a day, if that. Like, I couldn't deal with it because on our end of the receiver of having that disjointed relationship with our parents, we come incredibly independent, which is a trauma response, right? I don't need anybody because when I rely on people, I get disappointed.
Yes.
So you had to get comfortable with relying on your mother for no choice of your own. It really wasn't an option not to. So I see a big God movement in that. It's like that you must heal this. And I'm going to create these extraordinarily extreme circumstances in order to create this absolute need for reliance of you on your mother. First, the loss of your body, and now, well, the lower half of your body, and now with Chaz.
Yes.
So now your relationship with your mother is just in a place it's probably never been in.
Never. It opened up conversations that we probably never would have had, or at least wouldn't have had before, she passed, or further on down the line if she, lived a longer life. So it allowed us to be vulnerable in areas that we both were uncomfortable with being vulnerable in. I was always very bashful, but you have to understand, after the accident, full transparency, I was in diapers coming out of the hospital. She had to help me and
But this
learn.
is my point. Like, you were in diapers at one point and your mother couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden, here you are again. I mean, this is the circle of life. Mm-hmm. Here you are again. And God is saying, I'm giving you a second chance.
Yeah.
I want to bring forward what the next piece of this journey was for you. Because I'm going to try not to cry. Now God has brought everything full circle. I've given you the opportunity to reparent your baby, even though you're how old at this age? 26?
30. Yeah. Well, I was 26 at the time. Yeah, 25, okay. 26, yeah.
I'm going to give your mother, what was your mother's name?
Katrina Johnson.
I'm going to give Katrina Johnson this gift to reparent the baby she could never parent when she was 30 or 26. And then tell us what happens.
So I was regaining my strength and, finally getting a good schedule and a sense of normalcy back. I had my custom chair now. I was able to move. I started driving shortly after Chaz passed away. So, I jumped right back in law school. This accident happened the summer of my second year. I was going into my last year. And I started back law school from my hospital bed. So I was trying to tackle everything once again, back to old Bianca, doing everything, being everywhere. And I graduated in 2019 and she was there and happy and, just so proud of me. And I actually happened to come across an apartment that was accessible for me. So I was like, oh, wow, it was within my price range. It was close by. It wasn't far. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to give this a shot. And long story short, I ended up getting the apartment and I told my mother. And the same night that I told her, she ended up in the hospital. They said that it appeared as if she was having seizures. And I think she was just so scared at that moment that, okay, here I am, I'm taking care of her. She's fine. She's back in the safety of my arms. And now she's trying to leave again. She left me at 4 a.m. the morning of her accident. And now she's leaving me again to be on her own. And so I moved into my apartment in July of 2019. And in August, a week after my birthday, September, a week after my birthday, September 2nd, 2019, I got a phone call. Hey, I'm trying to reach your mother. I can't reach her. And I'm like, well, maybe she's sleeping or something. Cause my mom tried to get her rest, but something in my spirit said, Bianca, just get up and go check on her. So I immediately got in the shower. I went over there. I met up with the same neighbor who called me, and I came in and I found her deceased in the bathroom. And once again, my world shattered.
Yeah, I think that's the only way to describe it, is shattered.
Yeah.
Tell me about that moment.
I was in a state of disbelief. It was just unbelievable that this was happening again to someone that I had just spoken to a week after my birthday, and once again, I knew something was wrong because on my birthday, she didn't call me. She didn't call me. She didn't reach out. She didn't text me. I had to call her. I'm like, hello. She's like, hey, how you doing? I'm like, it's a pretty important day. She's like, what's today? I said, it's August 25th. She goes, oh, I'm so sorry. Happy birthday, but I could feel the weakness in her voice. I could hear it.
Mm.
I could feel that she wasn't herself. Me and my grandmother tried to do an intervention prior to her death of getting her to go to the hospital, but she just was fully reluctant, did not want to go. And honestly, I think she was ready to go. I think at this point, she was ready to go. She would not come to my apartment, but I got her to come one time, and I had to guilt her into coming. I had to say, Mom, I need help making my bed. I was fully capable of making my own bed. But I said, I need help making my bed. Can you please help me? She goes, all right, you can come get me. And she came. And when she came into my apartment, she just got so giddy. She said, I'm so proud of you. She's like, I can't believe that a person like me, someone who came from nothing, could have a daughter like you. And at that moment, we had such just a moment of love and appreciation. And I just reaffirmed in her that you were the most amazing mother that anyone could have. And I'm grateful that you were mine. And it was over from that. I was just like,
let me ask you, with the accident, could that have come to fruition, that level of acceptance of each of you for each other and that level of commitment and reliance?
I really don't think it would have came as soon. Of course, I don't know what God would have been able to do, but I think with the accident, because she was able to see me come into my own, right? Be reborn, and to really fight back for the life that I know that I desired, that I needed for us. And I was able to accomplish so many goals, even in the midst of, with every new problem, I was still kept by the same God. And that was a God that she served as well. And she just had no choice but to trust him and believe and be happy for me and love on me and know that she had a hand in creating me. That she was entrusted to be a mother to someone that was so resilient. And little did she know I was only so resilient because I knew that I had to be there for her. Like I said, it was always me and her. So I wasn't just fighting for myself. I wasn't just fighting to get back to the old Bianca. I was fighting so that I can make sure that the life that I was living would be prosperous for not only myself, but for my mother.
You are, and honestly, one of my favorite people in the whole wide world. And I just have to share with you, my very good, sweet friend, Sunny, is putting all these comments in here because I can tell that she loves you too. She says, God always prepares for us for the unknown. She was sharing that earlier. And she's also sharing that you just have a beautiful spirit, and you really, really do. I mean, I was so excited to have you on, and I really couldn't give full cred to how important I knew this interview would be, because I couldn't possibly speak it. People need to tune in and hear it because it's so incredibly inspirational. What shocks me is how much further you've gone. Every single thing, these three extreme crises back after back after back, it's like not being able to ever get out of the water. You're just treading with more weight, more weight, more weight. And yet that could break so many people. So many people could say, I'm done. These horrible things, again, I'm going to use the word too, these horrible things happened to me. Yeah. And I'm not, and a lot of people would end up walking with the belief, good things are not available to me. That's what a lot of people end up walking with. I'm not enough for it. I'm not worthy of it. And it's not available to me. Because it keeps getting validated over and over and over again, this confirmation bias. Good life is not available to me. Happiness is not available to me. Deep, meaningful relationships without loss is not available to me. Right? This is where people start to revert back because they're trying to protect themselves from potential further, pain. But yet, you got your law degree. You're an attorney. You've recently won the accolade and title of Miss New York, Miss Wheelchair New York. And now you're going to nationals to compete for Miss Wheelchair of America. I mean, this is like unbelievable. It's the prosperousness. So tell me about how you've gone from, because it's not been a long time. It hasn't even been 3 years.
It has been 5 years now, yeah.
Well, 5 years from your accident, but 3 years from your mom passing, right?
Oh, yeah. I don't know. Yeah.
And then, by the way, your mom passes, and then everybody's experienced this other strange, weird loss during COVID. So you really had this like very tumultuous 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me how you go from that to saying, I want more.
I think the only way was just coping and understanding that it didn't happen to me, but it happened for me.
That's what I've been trying to get at. Yes.
Every situation happened for me. It happened to, perpetuate me into and push me into my destiny. Like there were so many things that were lying dormant in me that was reawakened and ignited in me after the accident, after the loss of Chaz, after the loss of my mother, even after the loss of my dog. I lost my dog in 2020.
Oh, girlfriend, please, come on.
I had Diva for 15 years and, I lost her. It was just constant. During COVID, I lost my great grandmother, Molly Gustine, and she was the first Black detective, president of the Detectives Benevolent Association and things like that. So trailblazers in my life that I've always looked up to that really imparted and poured into me. Those were now being lost, So bringing me to that point of just being all I could be, right? So recognizing that I was able. So I wanted to go after everything that I may not have gone after before. I wanted to be able to be on different platforms where people could see something in me that they could relate to and that could resonate with them. My goal is not to be anyone's inspiration, right? That's not what I woke up one day and said, I'm going to strive to be. I understand that, and I'm grateful for the opportunity, but that wasn't my goal, but I'm glad that just by me living my life in its truth, if that does that for someone else, then I'm going to keep going, right? I'm going to keep going and I'm not going to stop. And no one's going to be able
I just put up your TikTok and your Instagram handle because people do need to follow you, because I know you don't think you're supposed to be the inspiration, but clearly you are very necessary for many. And I don't know if I was watching you on Instagram or on TikTok recently, but I was watching you learning how to rock climb on a rock climbing wall.
Oh yeah.
And it's just, for those that are watching that are kind of stuck and don't feel that they can even get off the couch, even though they're able-bodied, right? Mm-hmm. But that emotion weight is so heavy. You got to follow this gal on Instagram and TikTok just to give yourself a little bit of like, we can, right? Mm-hmm. We can go from we can't to we can.
Yeah.
So my goodness. I mean, honestly, going into this, I was like, I don't know if I can do this whole interview in one 45-minute session. We've covered quite a bit. And I'm just so grateful that I think God actually gave all the segues and all of the flow so we could get your story out in a succinct way, because it's so intense. But so tell us what's next for you. You're going to go out to Ohio for this Miss Wheelchair of America, Miss Wheelchair USA. And what else do you have? Where else are you harnessing life to the fullest?
So I'll be at Miss Wheelchair USA competing for the title. I'm excited. That's run by the Dane Foundation. And then after that, I'll also be going out to LA to the Rolettes Experience. And that is run by CEO Chelsea Hill. And it's an all-female wheelchair dancing company. And that has been amazing. And I've been able to befriend them. And, they've given me so much guidance and insight with navigating this injury. Some of them are 10, 12, 15 years in. So just that sense of community, being around hundreds of women who are eye level to me, rolling around, living out their truth, living out their best lives. It's the most amazing experience ever. So I'll be there also in July. Then I'm turning 31 this year.
Girl.
So about that. So I'm trying to get something on the books. and just making sure that I'm going everything after everything that I deserve, everything that I can put my hand to that is in God's will. I want it. I'm going to achieve it. I'm going to grasp it. I'm going to hold on to it. So that's my goal, and I'm excited for the journey. I realized that everything that has happened for me was necessary, and
Yeah.
I'm fully capable and coherent, and it could be worse, right? I have activity of my hands. I have my right mind. I'm able to work in my career. I'm able to still minister. I'm able to still speak. There are so many people that have it worse than me. So I'm just grateful for the state that I'm in. It could have been so much worse. I could have literally died on that bridge, but someone, God said, no, you're going to live. And that's all I can be grateful for.
Well, I really can't add much more than that. You are an absolute inspiration, even though I don't think you think that that is the case. You are truly an inspiration. I see so many people watching this right now, commenting how inspiring you are. God has plans. You are necessary. You were meant to do something big here, and I can feel it. And I think you get that. And I think that's why you are unstoppable and unshakable and unwavering in your conviction. It's really, what a beautiful way to end the week, truly. I'm so grateful for you. I'm so grateful that you agreed to be on this interview and that you listened to our crazy friend Jean that said you two need to talk. And if you guys want to follow Bianca Faith Johnson, I highly recommend you do. TikTok and Instagram, she's at Lady Faith 91.
Yes.
Watch, be inspired, cheer her on to all these fun things she's doing this summer and all the things that we know that you're going to continue to do with your life. So thank you so much for being my guest. I really has been such an honor for me.
Thank you for having me. This has been absolutely amazing. Thank you.
God.
You're beautiful.
Thank you so much. And for those of you who are catching this on the replay, please drop your comments below. Ask her questions. Bianca will get them. She can answer them. And for those of you that are enjoying this podcast, this will actually be in the podcast verse wherever you catch your podcasts, probably within the next 3 months. But if you can't wait, I have an entire other series from my Strong as a Mother series from 2 years ago. You can search that up on any platform that has podcasts. Apple, Spotify, Castbox, wherever you find your podcast, you can find it there. So thank you so much, Bianca. We're just so grateful to have had you today.
Oh, thank you. Out their truth, living out their best lives. It's the most amazing experience ever. So I'll be there also in July. Then I'm turning 31 this year.
Girl.
So I'm worried about that. So I'm trying to get something on the books. And just making sure that I'm going after everything that I deserve, everything that I can put my hand to that is in God's will. I want it. I'm going to achieve it. I'm going to grasp it. I'm going to hold on to it. So that's my goal, and I'm excited for the journey. I realized that everything that has happened for me was necessary, and I'm fully capable and coherent, and it could be worse, right? I have activity of my hands. I have my right mind. I'm able to work in my career. I'm able to still minister. I'm able to still speak. There are so many people that have it worse than me. So I'm just grateful for the state that I'm in. It could have been so much worse. I could have literally died on that bridge, but someone, God said, no, you're going to live. And that's all I can be grateful for.
Well, I really can't add much more than that. You are an absolute inspiration, even though I don't think you think that that is the case. You are truly an inspiration. I see so many people watching this right now, commenting how inspiring you are. God has plans. You are necessary. You were meant to do something big here, and I can feel it. And I think you get that. And I think that's why you are unstoppable and unshakable and unwavering in your conviction. It's really, what a beautiful way to end the week, truly. I'm so grateful for you. I'm so grateful that you agreed to be on this interview and that you listened to our crazy friend Jean that said you two need to talk. And if you guys want to follow Bianca Faith Johnson, I highly recommend you do. TikTok and Instagram, she's at Lady Faith 91.
Yes.
Watch, be inspired, cheer her on to all these fun things she's doing this summer and all the things that we know that you're going to continue to do with your life. So thank you so much for being my guest. I really has been such an honor for me.
Thank you for having me. This has been absolutely amazing. Thank you. God. You're beautiful.
Thank you so much. And for those of you who are catching this on the replay, please drop your comments below. Ask her questions. You know, Bianca will get them. She can answer them. And for those of you that are enjoying this podcast, this will actually be in the podcast verse wherever you catch your podcasts, probably within the next 3 months. But if you can't wait, I have an entire other series from my Strong as a Mother series from 2 years ago. You can search that up on any platform that has podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Castbox, wherever you find your podcast, you can find it there. So thank you so much, Bianca. We're just so grateful to have had you today.
Oh, thank you.